Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. I hope you and yours are well. Nice to have you back. Another week since we last had a wee chat. Great to get back to it. First things first, a big shout out to our Eva, who I'm afraid to say is suffering at the moment from a bout of pneumonia, and our heartfelt wishes and prayers and thoughts and all those things go with her. Hope she makes a speedy recovery. We look forward to getting her back. And Mr. Boswell, who can't join us, he's also very ill, as ill as a newt, and can't join us today. And I'd like to make a special welcome, though, to Izzy for turning up for us today, which is lovely to see you back again, Izzy. And also a big welcome to John Swinney and the National and the Daily Record and all you other unionists who pop in and say hello and get your information, which quite rightly, this is the place to come for it. And if you notice, guys, in the top left-hand corner, instead of just stealing what we're telling you, how about making a wee donation to our costs and helping us keep you informed and keeping the Scottish public informed instead of just hiding in the shadows? Make a contribution. But you're welcome. We like to spread the gospel according to Scotland. So anyway, this week, I have to say, it's been dominated, Alan, by a couple of things. And the first one is, and first I want to say this. This should not be a political football. People have lost loved ones. But the filthy political parties have to use anything they want and can and use for their own grubby needs and ends. And it's wrong. And here we are, we're talking about it as well. But it's because these political parties won't stay away. Now, it's terrible what's happening in the Southern General. You, the Queen Elizabeth, if you prefer. I prefer the Southern General. But it's been quite nauseating the way they've all behaved.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening there is a national disgrace. This hospital was pushed through far too quickly against the recommendations of professionals who were saying that there is major problems here that needs to be done. But whose fault is this? Because it doesn't just sit with the SNP. It sits with party politics in general. Because for far too long, the political parties keep trying to score points over this hasn't been finished in time, this has gone over budget, when what they should be doing is setting up a cross-party committee to look at any contracts to make sure the contracts are watertight. And if the companies do not get things built on time, satisfactory, up to safety standards, then there should be clauses in there that punish them. Same with the costings. If it's not done for the costs, because a lot of these companies put in bids that they know fine that they will never ever manage to get the project finished with. And then they put in further bids after that costing a lot more. This has all got to be stopped. We cannot have things opening just to get a ribbon cutting ceremony for politicians with a Photoshop. This has to be looked at very, very closely. And what's needing done at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital has to be done outside politics. Get a committee up and running right now to look at this with professionals and get the jobs that need done as soon as possible. Stop your political point scoring because people are dying. This is above party politics. And this is why Alliance to Liberate Scotland are totally different, because we are not here to score political points. We are here to say if something is wrong, we will call it out. But we will always give alternatives instead of just bashing the party in power, because it's not always their fault. They are being pressurised, and for political reasons, they are being pressurised. That has got to stop. The welfare of the people of Scotland must be top priority for all the political parties and every single elected member. So please, stop your party politics and start looking after the people of Scotland and get the problems that are at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital sorted now before more people die.
Okay. Izzy, of course, you were an NHS professional your whole life. This must have, particularly upset something. Well, not particularly, but upset you. You must have been with inside knowledge looking at this from outside.
Yeah, from somebody that worked in the NHS, what I see is institutional cover-up. They protect themselves to the detriment of patients and the relatives. The system is wrong. It needs to change. Everybody needs honesty and transparency. We can't have 10 years of cover-ups like this. This has been going on since 2015, when the first were told of problems that were potential problems. The infrastructure was not robust enough to deal with, or not robust enough in that the water system was contaminated, potentially contaminated. Clearly it was when this inquiry came through. And the infrastructure, the ventilation system as well was faulty. So these issues were highlighted early on, but it took an awful long time for them to actually say there is a problem. And then they didn't admit it fully. They hid it. They told the patients and relatives that they told them lies, basically. Refused to admit that there was a problem. Refused to take ownership of the issues that there was, the failings and the errors that went on. I mean, the whole thing needs to change. There needs to be a system of reporting issues, and these should be dealt with urgently. Not years down the line when there's been fatalities, when people have been severely affected by this. I'm not sure. The managers in NHS and those who built the hospital actually are the ones that are responsible for this. Blaming politicians is an easy target, but it really isn't. They oversee, of course, they're ministers for these things, but the actual building of the hospital, the opening of the hospital too early without the necessary checks and issues that were potential issues being resolved, it's the whole thing needs. The whole system of reporting and making sure hospitals are safe needs to be changed. It needs to be looked at. And the political, when you bring the politics into this, they should be working together, not fighting each other. They need to work together to resolve issues and see how we can stop this happening again. It's not, they did this and they did that without any resolution. Problems happen in the NHS. We know that human errors happen. Hospital-acquired infections happen. These should be dealt with collectively within the political parties and with the NHS boards. It shouldn't be, the finger shouldn't be held up to one particular area, particularly politics. But in all this, we have to remember that people have died.
Yes, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And blaming somebody else for the issues doesn't help them at all. And any potential future issues that, it has to, like I said, the whole system has to change. There has to be accountability, but not in the blame game, because that doesn't help.
Correct. I mean, last week we were highlighting a lie in an NHS leaflet by the Labour Party. They've all got to stop using health and people's lives and these things as a blame game. But we'll come on to the blame. But also, the other thing is, yes, those politicians have to step up and take responsibility. But what the British media are not saying and what are other is that on the board, the Glasgow Health Board, there were 9 British Labour councillors. They too must have been almost as complicit as anyone else if there's politicians complicit, which I'd like to come on to, Lloyd, if I may, because I'd like you to listen to your ex-boss, John. He was questioned, of course. John Swinney was questioned on the hospital, and he said there was no rush to open it. There was no pressure. Tell me what you think of this.
I've set out what is the government's position based on the evidence and information available to us.
So have you looked into that?
Well, that's the evidence and information that's available to me.
So you've looked into that. You're absolutely sure there was no government pressure?
Well, I've just set it out to Parliament, so yes, I'm sure about that.
So whether you think the pressure came from that's mentioned in the evidence?
That's for the inquiry to determine.
First Minister, do you have confidence in the Health Board, given what we've heard from the families today?
Yes, I do.
You think the hospital's safe?
I think the hospital's safe. I put on the parliamentary record information that came from an independent report on the questions of the security of the water supply, which has been undertaken at the request of Lord Brodie, not by the government, and reported to the inquiry. And that indicates confidence in the quality of the water system, and I accept those findings.
Gov, what do you think, Lloyd?
I think it's ridiculous that they're asking him questions about something that happened 10 years ago. You know, the hospital has been up and running. The inquiry that's going on at the moment is about what happened in the run-up to the opening of the hospital and in the immediate period of its operation. I find it quite extraordinary that, you know, John Swinney has the ability to tell reporters that he's explained everything to Parliament and therefore everything is hunky-dory, everything is fine. The fact of the matter is we're having a public inquiry into the building and the opening of the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. Why are we having that? We're having that because people lost their lives and some people were extremely badly damaged as a result of the failures in the hospital itself. Now, I agree entirely this should not be a political football. But the fact of the matter is we have to find out why this happened. That's why we've got the inquiry. The fact that you've got the Tories or the Labour Party jumping on it and blaming the SNP, to me, in actual fact, it may be using it as a political football, but it's the reality. It was the SNP that were in charge when the hospital was built. The SNP were in charge when the hospital was opened. The SNP were in charge when the people became ill and indeed died. That's why we're having the inquiry. We're having the inquiry because the SNP failed on its watch. Now, what is the reasons for that? That's what the inquiry is about. But I think it would be foolhardy for anyone to suggest that there was no pressure on making the hospital open on time, under budget, or on budget. That there was no political pressure for that to happen. Of course there was. In the same way as there were political pressures to make sure that all the other infrastructure projects that went on in Scotland since devolution, that all of them as well were examined properly. That there were pressures to make them come in on time and on budget. Now, the issue here is who was it that was applying the pressure, and on whose behalf? And I think we all know exactly what the answer to that question is. It was probably the civil servants, or it was the junior ministers doing it on behalf of the First Minister of the time, because the hospital was the golden project right in the middle of her constituency. Now, I don't have a problem with public inquiries. I don't have a problem with people being brought to book for the failures that they've had. But what I do get annoyed about is when people start saying things like, oh, well, you know, it's not the minister's fault. The minister's not a plumber. The minister's not a builder. The minister never designed a hospital before. I'm sorry. Oversight is their responsibility. And if that oversight includes, as it did in the ferries fiasco, ordering people to prepare things for photo opportunities when they were not ready, like having the launch of a ferry when it was not ready to be launched, like forcing the opening of a hospital before it was absolutely certain that it was ready to be commissioned. Now, somebody has to be found responsible for this. And I think this dilution of the circumstances by saying that the politicians are not necessarily responsible. I think in this circumstance, and I think that the inquiry will prove that there was pressure put on the contractors, on the health board, by the Scottish Civil Service on behalf of the ministers, and maybe we'll actually find out that the ministers also applied pressure as well to get the hospital open according to their timetable, not the timetable which was the timetable of the constructors who said, no, we're not quite ready yet. Now, in all of these things, and I think this is just one of many that are going to emerge over the next few months and years, it's always ultimately the cover-up that causes the problem. And now already we're in cover-up land. We can tell by the responses of the leaders of the Tories and the Labour Party. They think there's a cover-up, so they're going after individuals. And the way that John Swinney replies to them makes it very clear that he's trying to cover something up as well. Now, in the end, it's the families of the victims of the circumstance who should be the absolute centre of any of our discussions.
Yes.
But like in so many of these things, it becomes, quote, a political football, and therefore we shouldn't go there. The fact of the matter is we need to go there because we have to find out what went wrong, why people lost their lives, and why families were devastated by misconceived ideas that were clearly applied by both the Health Board, the Civil Service and the Scottish ministers.
Yeah, and make sure it never happens again. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But could I just say this to SNP, a wee bit of advice to maybe help along the way. If you're willing to lie about the definition of what is a woman, why should we believe you about anything else? If you get something as basic as that, you won't tell the truth. Don't be surprised now that no one believes a word that comes out your mouth. You know, it's things coming home to roost. If I could just do, before we go into our next question, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick reminder on behalf of our friends at Liberate Scotland, which is that on the 7th of February in the Salutation Hotel in Perth, they will be holding a burn supper, which should be fantastic. And it's £35 per person. There are some tickets left. You can either get them on Eventbrite or get in touch with them. You'll see throughout the show coming up, info@liberatescot.scot. Get your tickets, get there, come and meet the gang and have a good night out and support and celebrate our bard. On cover-ups and things that we want to know about this week as well, Alan, another one that's coming along is that the Hamilton inquiry into sturgeon, and the press again are using it, the salmon. No, this is about sturgeon and what she did and what her government did during the Alex Salmond, I don't know what to call it, conspiracy. Yeah, I think it's close enough. And here's what John said. Oh, wonderful stuff.
I've got to be very mindful of the orders that are in place from the courts about the handling of information in relation to this issue. And the courts have made it clear that those who complained in relation to allegations of sexual assault have got to have their identities protected. And there are no circumstances in which I will do anything that risks breaking those court orders. Now, we will comply with the Freedom of Information decision of the Information Commissioner, but we have to do it in a way that is legally compliant, that does not breach court orders. And that's what we're doing.
So you think Labour are playing politics on this?
Well, there's a very important issue here in that the courts have decided that those who complained in relation to allegations of sexual assault should have their identities protected, and there should be no risk of jigsaw identification in the release of any information about this case. Now, that is an order of the court, and I, as First Minister, must ensure my government operates within the orders of the court. That is what we're doing just now. We'll release the information that we can release, but we have to make sure that we do that consistent with the court orders that are in place.
I must comply with the court, Alan, he said. He's not complying with the Supreme Court when it suits them. They're just hiding behind this.
Certainly is. I mean, John, we know you watch this show because Monday morning you usually send out a comment from the show. So let me take this comment, that you will now uphold the Supreme Court ruling and get men out of women's jails, because that's what the Supreme Court said. So go and do it. Now, I'm getting sick and tired of this Scottish Parliament moving more and more like Westminster. Remember in 1999 when the Scottish Parliament opened? It was something different. It was designed to be different. You had an area where demonstrations could be done, where you are in touching a space of politicians. That's changed because you're no longer allowed to demonstrate in that area. And we had freedom of information because we believe in open government. We even appointed someone independent to look at this information to see what can be given out. So what's the point of having that person if you're just going to say to them, we've heard what you've said, but no, we're not going to do it because of some dodgy court ruling that protects perjurers? Because that's exactly what that court ruling did. It protected perjurers. But we are sick and tired of the SNP following the Westminster line. Now, I know there's lots of Scottish independent supporters who are saying this is a British states conspiracy. They are bringing this up because there is an election coming up. Well, if John had done what he said what he should have been doing and released this a number of years ago, this wouldn't be coming up for an election time. John has held this up time and time again. And I do not believe that is not on purpose, because John himself doesn't want a full independent supporting Parliament in May, because he knows that we will put so much pressure on him to do what his only job is, and that is to declare independence for Scotland. So he is doing the British establishment's job for them by withholding this information. The people of Scotland want to see the truth here. There's no conspiracy from the Scottish people. We just want to know what actually happened. How was Alex Salmond set up? Who was involved in this? Because we all know it happened. There's no hiding from that, John. You know, and we know what happened during that period of time when Alec was being fitted up. So why not just put your hands up and say, this is the exact details that you are looking for. Hide the women's names. Not a problem. That's in line with the courts. That'll come out at some stage because someone will challenge it eventually. Because a lot of these women did commit perjury and they should be going back to jail and standing charges on that one. But John, if you really believe in independence, start trusting the Scottish people with the information that they are entitled to. You are not the guardian of our right to know. That has already been decided by the Information Commissioner, who is appointed to overrule any political stance. He is there to see what the people of Scotland are and are not entitled to. And he has decided that the people of Scotland are entitled to this information. So stop your nonsense and get these reports released now.
Izzy, whether it's the Information Commissioner, the Supreme Court, the Court of Session, governments everywhere just think, well, no, we don't like this. Or the Epstein files are another classic example of it. If we don't like it, we're not telling the people, and to hell with them. It is very disrespectful. And in a democracy, surely we should have transparency, and this should be laid bare immediately.
Absolutely right. I'm going to be personal about this. John Swinney is a coward. He's a coward and he's hiding behind the secrecy behind these women. You know, the legal ruling that they would get anonymity for life, which is a nonsense. As Alan said, they didn't tell the truth, so they should be being charged with that perjury as well. But back to what's happening here. The Scottish government for years, there's been an accumulation of secrecy, failing to tell us the truth, not being accountable, cover-ups and all sorts. It has to stop at some point. This is untenable. And you're right, it's not just our government. I mean, the British government is very good at it. They have been forever. But there's across the world this is happening. The authoritarian management style has become commonplace. As for Swinney, there is no reason why he shouldn't be revealing the information that has been asked for. And hopefully the legal action being taken by David Hamilton, instructed the solicitors to begin legal proceedings, hopefully that will eventually come to court and the truth will out. In the meantime, what are they hiding?
Oh,
They must be hiding something pretty grim, that they refuse to give us the information, give the public the information that is required. We all know that the Scottish Government were held accountable in court. They were told that the procedure was against Alex Salmond initially, was unlawful, illegal. So everything else that should come from that. I mean, the exposing the lies and the full measure of what happened within the civil service, within the government, it has to be exposed. Politics in Scotland is stuck because of this. The people are being, we're being lied to, but they still expect our votes, you know. John Swinney, they should vote him out. They should vote against him in May. He is not fit to hold an elected position anymore. He's certainly not fit to be First Minister.
He never was.
Well, that's true. I mean, we know what happened in the first time when he was leader of the SNP. But yeah, why is he First Minister? And who's he protecting?
Well,
or what have they got in him, basically? You know, there's nothing else I can say really. That's about it. That wraps it up. I mean, for me, it's lies and cover-ups, and it has to be exposed.
Absolutely, but that's the thing. Lloyd, I think a hell of a lot of people actually do know the identities. Everyone in this room knows all the identities. We keep it quiet, obviously, for obvious reasons. But from their own point of view, that old phrase, in a vacuum, something will go into a vacuum. And if you keep it quiet, then it grows arms and legs. They're actually long-term probably damaging themselves more, but not letting the entire truth out, because it could be worse, it could be better, but we'll never know until they abide by the rules.
I think, I've said this many, many times. The country, the movement, and the Scottish National Party cannot move on until there is honesty and complete transparency about what went on in the conspiracy to bring down Alex Salmond. I mean, the fact that the Scottish National Party at the moment tries to ignore the fact that Alex Salmond was actually the leader of the Scottish National Party for 20-odd years, and a very successful leader at that, but they pretend that he doesn't exist. You'll never hear any senior member of the Scottish National Party even say his name. Now, the reason for that is because of the very conspiracy against him. And there are so many people that are involved in this, from the current First Minister back to when he was the Deputy First Minister, the First Minister before him, Humza Yousaf, and the First Minister before him, Nicola Sturgeon. Now, all of these people, to my mind, being a member of the Scottish National Party, are trying to protect the SNP, but they're trying to protect the SNP from its own behaviour. Therefore, it's an untenable situation, a totally untenable situation. But the tragedy is the country gets left behind. The SNP is the leading element of the national movement, or as was the leading member of the national movement. If it's in a situation where it cannot be honest with itself, it cannot be honest with the people. And that's the circumstances that we find ourselves in. They can't be honest with themselves, so they cannot be honest with the people. But they're in this extraordinary situation where the unionist parties are in such disarray. People's desire to vote for the unionist parties is so low that the SNP will continue to pick up votes from the less engaged members of the electorate. And I think what they're hoping and they're counting on is exactly that. It's the managed decline that I've talked about on many, many occasions. But the biggest element of this is there has to come a day when the cover-up ends. There has to come a day when the truth is told. And if it wasn't for the fact that, as Izzy referred to, and I've referred to on many, many occasions, and most of the people in the country know it, that's why his approval rating is so low, John Swinney is an abject coward. If he had the genuine, and he will claim this, he always does, the party comes first. The protection of the party is the most important thing. All the things that John's done since the day and hour that Nicola Sturgeon became First Minister, all of the things he's done with his giant big redactor pen were for the good of the party. And what's good for the party is good for the country. That's John's mantra, right? But it's wrong, and we know that it's wrong, particularly when circumstances like this arise, where in actual fact the protection of the party is about the protection of individuals, individuals who have taken actions, who have made actions, who have carried out particularly insidious behaviour to demean and diminish other people in the national movement. The fact that they've done this into this circumstance that we find ourselves in now, they cannot get out until somebody has the courage to put their hand up and say, no, in actual fact, this is what happened. Now, we all know that this is a legal minefield. We've all got to be very careful what we say. The absurdity of that, unfortunately, is there's a huge number of people know exactly what went on, who was involved in trying to traduce Alex Salmond. Now, more and more people know about it on a day-and-daily basis. The fact that the leader of the Scottish National Party is hiding behind a decision by Lady Dorian that they can't produce information that the courts have effectively told them to produce for the Information Commissioner just simply tells me yet again there is a fear, an absolute fear that the truth will come out, when in reality the biggest fear that we should all have is the truth not coming out, because the truth not coming out means that the SNP stumbles from pillar to post as the supposed leading member of the national movement, and the people of this country are let down completely because it's a party that does not understand the concept of truth, either in its own internal business or indeed with its dealings with the general public. Now, the fact that we are discussing this immediately after having talked about the Queen Elizabeth Hospital cover-up, we're talking about another cover-up. And as I said in previous answer on the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, the undoing of the Scottish National Party will happen because of the cover-ups. And there are many. And they are slowly but surely emerging into the light. And if the leaders of the Scottish National Party, and John Swinney in particular, genuinely had the best interests of the Scottish National Party and the national movement in mind, then what they would do is admit that what has happened over the conspiracy against Alex Salmond, and indeed the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and indeed the ferries, and indeed the Edinburgh trams, and indeed the child abuse inquiry, that all of these things are effectively hogtied by the SNP's own inability to tell its truth to itself.
Correct. What they should do is what Sturgeon did to Alec, what she did to the party, what she did to the cause, what she's doing to her husband. They should throw her under the bus, because therein lies the problem. Because from the minute Alec was charged, the cover-ups and the lies and the subterfuge began, ladies and gentlemen. And until it's all out in the open and the truth is known, the SNP can never be 100% trusted. And the most annoying thing about this, Alan, is we keep saying it, the union has never been weaker. If we had an honest, open, transparent SNP working in conjunction with the independence movement and other independence parties, we could very soon be negotiating our independence, because the latest polling out recently is showing in absolute clarity. But two things: one, the SNP are way in front. They will win most of the seats, but SNP 1-2 will allow all these other ones in here, ladies and gentlemen, all these unionist parties, and pretend independence party at the bottom in if you go SNP 1-2. They don't have enough for a majority, but united we would have. But they are there for the taking. The union is there for the taking.
Yeah, I mean, the polls are showing that the SNP, although they're winning, cannot win a majority, which John Swinney has said he requires to call an independence referendum, which, again, he will be rejected at Westminster again,
Of course he will.
regardless how much seats he wins. But the SNP have lost over half of the independent independent movements support. That's just a fact. I mean, we'll see this at the Glenrothes by-election, where
I'm coming to
their
that.
their vote just crumbled, although they still held the seat. That was only because they were very strong at the last election. But the reason this is happening is because the SNP are showing themselves to be incompetent. And like Lloyd said, they continuously cover things up. What people like to see is if a politician makes a mistake, own it. Say you're sorry. Admit your faults. Because if you do that, then we know you could go back and fix it. If you don't, if you continuously cover up saying nothing to see here, then we know that problem will never, ever be fixed. And it will happen again. Politics has got to be open. And people have got to be given that trust again. Because just now, people do not have trust in politicians, particularly party politics. People are sick and tired of people making choices for them. And again, the polling just now is so low. There is more people staying at home than what the winning candidate is getting. That's all wrong. This is why we have to go to direct democracy. So as the people themselves are making the decisions, the elected members are only their person in Parliament doing the job that their constituencies tell them to do, and not their party whip. Because people are sick and tired of going to hustings and getting told, we will promise you heaven and earth. And as soon as they're elected, they do the exact opposite. They do not listen to their constituents. They vote against their constituents' interests, all in the interest of the party, or as the civil service want. The politics has been run upside down just now because civil servants should be accountable to the politician. They're not at this present stage. The civil service are telling the politicians what to do. Politicians should be accountable to their constituents, but they're not. They're looking after their own party and pushing whatever the party whip is telling them to do. And until that changes, nothing is going to really change in this country. And that, again, I keep coming back to it, is why the Alliance to Liberate Scotland is so different from any other political party. We do not have a group whip. Any elected representative of the Alliance to Liberate Scotland will have to consult with their constituents on votes going through the Parliament. The only vote that is non-negotiable is the vote on independence, because we make that quite clear that if you're voting for an Alliance to Liberate Scotland candidate, you're voting for an independent Scotland. All other issues will be decided after the independence, so as every single citizen of Scotland can have a say in how that operates. We are not going to tell the people of Scotland how an independent Scotland should be run. That is for them to make that decision themselves, openly and honestly. Unfortunately, at this present time, we have politicians who are just going and looking after themselves and getting paid an awful lot of money for doing so. Liberate Scotland candidates are there for outcomes, not incomes.
Yeah, well said, Alan. But that's the thing. Alan's right. Hold your hand up. I mean, anyone would do it. If someone, politicians just can't do it. But if someone in your social circle or your spouse turns and says, I got it wrong and I'm going to fix it and I apologise, I got it wrong, here's what I'm going to do, you would trust that person forever. The fact that they can't bring it in themselves to say, I got it wrong, just makes you can't trust them. And they're surprised why they're 20 odd points away from over 50% support independence, but only 30 odd percent support the SNP, because they can't be trusted.
Yeah, Alan's right too, but yeah, sorry seems to be the hardest word in politics. Really, they can't own it. They can't own their mistakes. They have to fudge it and lie and cover up and make it better than it actually is. That has to stop. The whole political system has to change. We'll be stuck in this abject limbo of unaccountability forever unless people vote for change, real change. And that can only come with adding Liberate Scotland into the equation here, because we will be held to account, but we will also hold them that are already elected, who the other parties, to account too. As for the SNP, 34-35% of the polling at the moment, even with the Greens, and they're not polling very high at the moment, they're still not going to get a majority. So we'll have to add others into the equation. We are the others, Liberate Scotland. We could add Alba in there as well. I don't know if they will. They're not polling at the moment. They're not on the radar. So I don't know what's going to happen. But we need to change the system. We need to change the way people think about politics. We need to make sure politicians have to be held accountable. And to do that, there has to be changes in how the electorate are involved in politics, how they can hold politicians to account, and there has to be consequences for those that are not. As for the unionist parties, I see Reform on that poll is still polling second, but I'm sure that must have been taken before Malcolm Offord was appointed leader of the Reform Party in Scotland. I mean, but they're still being on the polls. Are still Reform UK, but we've got Lord Offord being leader.
Awful, more like. But that's as we said, as we highlighted last week, though, all that's happening is the unionist votes are shuffling about. Last time in 2024, the general election, all the unions went, "Oh, let's get to Labour because that will beat the SNP." It wasn't a rush because they loved Labour or they thought Labour were going to do the job, and now they're going, "No, they're as bad. They're useless. Let's all go." And Nigel Farage is the answer to our dreams. God give me strength.
Indeed, Labour. Warmongering Labour. I mean, well, we know the Labour in Scotland have to kowtow to England. And where Keir Starmer's taking us to, I mean, I'm laughing here because if you didn't laugh, you'd actually pull your hair out and greet. On the brink of war, and not just any old war. I mean, we're talking nuclear war here. It's the whole thing is absurd as it is scary because they're sitting still getting 18% or 16% of the vote. I mean, it's I don't know what people are thinking. Do they not care about what's happening globally? Do they not care about what these politicians are actually doing? I don't think they do. I don't think they know.
No, they
I
don't.
think they're dead in the sand.
Well, the British public are kept in the dark. It's the old mushroom management from the BBC and ITV and STV. They keep us in the dark and throw shit at us every so often. That's the problem. But on this, Lloyd, we've got the growing gap between the SNP and reality. But I'd like to go to the by-election now. They got 44% in the by-election, but let me put on the caveat. 79% of people who could have voted stayed at home. That's, to me, the worrying thing. And there's the SNP with 44, Reform 27, Labour 16, 7% to the Tories, the Lib Dems with 5, and the Family Party with 1%. But the biggest winner was the Apathy Party with 72%. You're on mute, my friend.
Oh, yeah, a pound. I've not done that for a while.
Another pound.
Another pound. No, the biggest thing that should be worrying people in all political parties and supporters of all political parties is the disengagement. The fact that people are not coming out to vote. This is an increasing trend, particularly in local government over the past few years, and it's not getting any better. But what I'm not seeing is anything from the political parties about how they actually understand why this is happening. The SNP's analysis in years gone by, when particularly turnout dropped, would have been to examine what the reasons were for that, address those reasons, and then go and do something about it. Now, nobody's in that world at this particular moment, which is why Reform, as the kind of rebel vote, as the anger vote, is managing to come through in second places. But the numbers of people that are actually going out and voting for them, it's 700 people, gives them 22% of the vote. Now, I mean, let's not get too worried about this. What we need to be worried about is the lack of democracy within the established political parties and the lack of inspiration they're providing for the general public. It's very clear from the opinion polls that neither Anna Sarwar, Alec Cole Hamilton, Russell Finlay, or John Swinney are actually exciting the electorate in any way whatsoever. All of them have negative opinion ratings. So it's expecting the Labour Party to suddenly come over the hill with lots of new ideas they're going to bring to the table. That's not going to happen. We're in a trough in our puppet politics at the moment, and it's partly created by the behaviour of the SNP and partly behaviour of the Labour Party and the Tories. We've got probably the least talent on the benches of our parliament than we've had since the parliament opened in 1999. And that's because there's too much internal party politicking going on and not enough seeking out of talent. You know, we bemoan the fact that no one's coming into the election with any big ideas. The SNP wants to protect what it's done, but it's not coming with any big ideas. The Labour Party is not coming with any big ideas. The Tories are not coming with any big ideas because the system mitigates against that. Anyone with big ideas gets marginalised in the devolution politics in Scotland. You can't have innovative ideas if you're one of the British Unionist parties, the Tories, the Liberals, or the Labour Party, because London will poo-poo that and tell you to get back in your box, jock. The Scottish National Party can't initiate any ideas at the moment because they're too busy making sure that the skeletons stay in the cupboard, and that's where all their energy is being put into. And this is the worst thing for our democracy, which is why in May of this year, people have got the opportunity to make change. People have got the opportunity to change their vote. And if you're of an independence mind, there's no question that a vote for the SNP is not a vote for independence. Therefore, you'd be wasting your vote. If you're an independence supporting voter, then you have to vote for the Liberate Scotland Alliance, or you have to vote for one of the independence candidates on your constituency. But if any of us are going to be convinced or fooled into believing that in some ways the Scottish National Party is going to sweep to an enormous victory with a huge majority in May of next year, then frankly, that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is exactly the same as happened in 2003. The people of this country rejected John Swinney as the leader of a political party in 2003, and Alex Salmond had to come back and save the SNP's bacon. That's what happened. What's going to happen this time round is, we already know it, the people of this country do not have faith and are not excited by John Swinney, so they will come out in much reduced numbers. He'll probably end up First Minister again, but the cause of independence and the cause of Scotland and the cause of the future for our children is again put on the back burner for the sake of the protection of the party and of particular individuals' reputations. That's the essential problem.
100%, Lloyd. That's why we have you on here all the time. You always hit it in the nail, young man. But all the unionist parties, they're all saying, you've all been watching it, folk. You know, Labour saying you vote for Labour because we're the only ones that can stop the SNP. And the Reform go, what my jacket? No, vote for Reform because we're the only ones that can stop the SNP. Nonsense, say the Tories. We're the only ones that can stop the SNP. As Lloyd's alluded to, not one of them comes out and says, well, here's an idea. Why don't I go into my headquarters in London and demand that they immediately devolve broadcasting, give full fiscal autonomy to Scotland, create 2 new ports in the east coast of Scotland, come up with anything. But no, it's all SNP bad. We're better. We're not as bad. Vote for us. It's absolutely appalling. And you wonder why 22% are only prepared to turn out. That's exactly why. But we've talked about this all day, lying going on, Alan. And that's what they do. They just lie. You know, sorry, how do you know when a politician's lying? Their lips are moving. But down in Wales, they're trying to do something about it. Now, there's a lovely irony to this. I don't know if you've been following this story. The lying ban for politicians in Wales, which could result to expulsion and imprisonment. But the British Labour Party, all of them, all the British parties, the Labour Party are worried about freedom of speech. No, they're worried about freedom of lying. That's what they're worried about, not freedom of speech.
That's exactly it. I mean, what I would like to know is who will decide who is lying? Will it be a liar? Will it be taken on their interpretation of things? I mean, this opens up a wide range of things. I mean, for point one, if the Labour Party in Scotland, if we had that legislation and they stood up and said, I represent the Scottish Labour Party, I, Anna Sarwar, are the leader, that would be lying immediately, because the Scottish Labour Party does not exist. And I'd go up and visit him in jail just to see the look on his face, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, it should be a case of if you tell lies, a blatant lie in Parliament, you should be out of office immediately. If you go into a court of law and you tell a lie, you are then charged with perjury. And that carries...
Not always, Alan, as we were talking about earlier.
Yes, if you're not supported by the government, that is. And that carries quite a heavy jail sentence, as some people already know. But if you go into Parliament, you could tell as many lies as you want, and they do. I mean, you have Labour politicians who are demanding the Scottish government do things that's in the power of Westminster. They're trying to lie to the people of Scotland that this is not being done at the Scottish Parliament level. And it's got to stop. I mean, this nonsense where you're just lying to get elected, and then you get found out as soon as you are elected. But when it comes around to the next election, the people of Scotland believe them again. People of Scotland have got to waken up with this. If they tell you a lie once, they will tell you again and again and again. Stop falling for their lies. You've got to stand up and be counted. But I will make this declaration that Liberate Scotland will stop or can stop the SNP. And how we will do that is by gaining enough votes to go into the Scottish Parliament to declare independence and run that Parliament as an independent Parliament. We will not take no for an answer. And that is a promise from the Liberate Scotland candidates. We have no other thought in our mind but going into that Parliament and declaring our independence for Scotland. But we need the votes to do that. And I'll say to every single person who votes unionist parties, who genuinely believe in independence, we are your alternative. You do not have to keep voting for a unionist party because you do not like the SNP. Liberate Scotland are there, and their goal is the same as your goal, and that is for independence of our country.
You're right. There's a cracker last week as well. That genius, that walking genius, Stephen Kerr, Tory MSP, who was berating the SNP for the fuel price escalator and saying how it was ridiculous, how expensive petrol was in Scotland. Stephen, I've got some bad news for you, mate. Reserved. But they're worried about a lying bill, because they say it would affect their freedom of speech. How can stopping people lying be affecting your freedom of speech?
Let's have a look at what the truth law, because that's what they're calling it, the media's calling it the truth law. The proposals aim to strengthen standards, allowing for the suspension and removal of politicians who deliberately lie to the public or the legislature. Oh, I can't even say that. You know what I mean. It focuses on intent to deceive rather than honest mistakes. Yes, that's what we need. The controversy comes from fears that this might inadvertently restrict legitimate debate. That the definition of lie needs to be carefully handled. For God's sake, what? So, a wee dictionary definition from the Oxford Dictionary, because I like a wee dictionary definition. It says, lying, the definition is the intentional false statement intended to deceive. So what they're talking about is lying liars. So sack the bloody liars, sack them. Anyway, in my opinion, those lying and accused of gross misconduct should be tried and a minimum jail term should be mandatory if found guilty. That's where I stand on this. There's just one thing I would like to ask. Can we make it retrospective in Scotland?
Back to when? Because you'd clog up the courts if we went too far back.
Well, they managed to make it retrospective to frame Alex Salmond, so why not go right back to the beginning of Parliament?
Can we also bring in the guillotine? That's another story for another day.
Well, yeah.
The whole thing is, Lloyd, that unionism, I'm not being cynical here, but I'm a cynic, is based on lies. The whole thing's based on a lie. But the problem is, Alan alluded to, who decides and who's the judge in this? That's the problem with this bill.
Yes, but let's be honest about this. This is a real step forward. I mean, take her for instance. It's not possible for a member of the Welsh Parliament, the Senate, or the Assembly in Northern Ireland, or the Parliament here in Edinburgh, for them to be surcharged when they make a colossal mistake. Whereas, if you're a councillor in the city chambers in Edinburgh or the city chambers in Cardiff, and you make a disastrous mistake and that results in loss of money to the council taxpayers, then you are financially responsible for it. There's a certain absurdity here that, in the strata of our politics, where the House of Lords is at the top, the House of Commons comes next, the subordinate legislations in Cardiff, Belfast and Edinburgh come next, and then local councils are way, way below that. But the responsibilities that local councillors have, and indeed the penalties that they can be subject to, are colossally larger than anything that the Lords has to deal with, the Commons has to deal with, or the subordinate legislations need to deal with. It is about time. We had the ability to surcharge, particularly, for instance, in the circumstances we find ourselves in Scotland at the moment, where the great defence of the Scottish National Party and the Scottish National Party government is to constantly litigate, to take people to court, to challenge the decisions of courts, costing us, the citizens of this country, an absolute fortune, hundreds of thousands of pounds, possibly into the millions. Now, my belief is, every time the government has to go to court to defend itself, then if they lose, then the actual ministers should be paying the bill, not the taxpayers. It shouldn't be coming out of the Scottish Government block grant, shouldn't be coming out of the Parliament's block grant either. It should be coming out of the pockets of the ministers who made the mistakes. Surcharging, like you would do to a local councillor, but you don't do to members of the Parliament or members of the Scottish Government. That would be a step forward and might actually address the other issue that we've been talking about, which is the lack of turnout. If we had that level of kind of punitive charges against politicians, then maybe we get a better quality politician. Maybe we get a better quality. Maybe we get politicians who actually tell the truth and maybe check twice before they decide on a particular vanity project that's going to cost the country a fortune. Maybe that then would let people come back out and have some faith in politics and come back out and become engaged again in the way that we need them to be engaged to deliver the independent country that we need.
Yeah. I remember years ago there was a film with Peter Sellers in it where he became, a simple guy, became the president of the United States because he told the truth and everything was great, it was wonderful. And you say, oh, well, that happens in the movies. Well, they did the same in Kiev where they had a guy who was a comedian and he became the president in his show and it worked for him. So why couldn't we have some truth, lads? But here's the thing, where the Labour Party in particular is complaining about telling the truth, or the freedom of speech, telling the truth, Alan, they want to introduce what they call now, I'm sure people go, oh, Labour, that sounds very interesting, a pantycoptican. Have you ever heard of it before in your life? A well, let me tell you, let me read out what exactly this is. It's an architectural concept for a prison designed by a Jeremy Bentham, featuring a central tower from which guards can observe inmates in surrounding cells without the inmates knowing if they're being watched, creating a sense of constant surveillance to enforce discipline and self-regulation. And they want this type of security surveillance on the people of the United Kingdom, so that we'll always know that Big Brother's watching and we have to comply and behave ourselves. Is it any wonder they're against a policy of telling the truth, Alan?
Welcome to 1984.
Yeah.
Living on Animal Farm. because that's exactly what this is like. The Labour Party, the party that was started on the back of the trade union movement, now have no faith or any trust in the people of the country. They seem to forget we are the ones who employ them. They are there to do a job that we tell them to do. Their job is not to spy on the citizens of this country and to use pathetic legislation such as the Terrorism Act that was put in place to quell any dissent of the government is just ridiculous. The Labour Party are no longer the party of the people or the working class. They are the pound shop reform party, because that's all they are now. They are trying to out-reform reform because they are in danger of losing votes to reform in England. Well, it's not acceptable, and it will be rejected in Scotland once people know exactly what their plans are. And isn't it strange, too, that this has been pushed by the Labour Party and the British Civil Service, who themselves do not like to be recorded by members of the public. They continuously, and you see it on Facebook and YouTube all the time, members of the public recording them in public spaces and them being arrested and held illegally, because there is no law that stops you from recording anything in public. Because in public, you have no right of privacy. That's how the law works. But civil servants and the politicians do not like it. But they are the ones who want to spy on us, because they keep saying, if you don't do anything wrong, what are you worried about? Well, what are you guys worried about when you're being recorded doing your job, or supposed to be doing your job? And half the time you're doing it illegally and with force. So no, people of Scotland have got to waken up to this. We're sick and tired of being treated as a number. I mean, it's like that. I'm looking at the window now to see if I could see a big white ball rolling about as in Prisoner.
Oh, I remember it. Yeah, great program.
I mean, that's how bad we are getting now, where we're all just going to be given a number at birth, and you'll be compelled to do what you're told by the government. No more elections, no more having your own say or complaining about anything. Just do as you're told and sit down and be quiet. Well, I'm sorry. Ain't going to happen. I will go to jail before I let any government rule my life the way they're trying to do it. And I believe that I will not be the only one in that position. So you'll better start building a lot more jails if you're going to do this.
I think I'll probably be sharing a cell with Alan, along with everyone else we know. But a Pantopticon, this is the same party that wanted to bring in digital IDs to look after us. These are the same people, that are saying, no, it's not a genocide. And if you say it's a genocide, we're going to cancel you. We're going to strangle your social media. We're going to get you fired. We're going to write to your employer. These are the people saying, no, they're not fascist Nazis and create. No. If you say that, we're going to cancel you. We're going to do this, that, and the next to you. But trust us, when we put this in place, just the surveillance, it's for your own good, as long as you just behave yourself. Scary.
Yeah, it is. I had to look it up because I didn't know what that was, Panopticon. And what came to mind when I was reading it was the Great Escape and the prison camp and the guards up on these big towers. And then what came to mind was, I'm not going to say the words, but you'll know when I say F the F off. This is authoritarianism. It's 100% obedience. This is what they're after. The Home Secretary, I didn't even know what her name is. She's taken leave of her senses, but then the government has taken leave of its collective senses. Maybe we should put them in a cage and observe them 24/7 and see how they like it. See how they behave.
I mean, my way, they would be in jail all of them.
Yeah. They really, these people, they actually need a psych assessment. They're psychopathic. They're really, they've taken, like I said, they've taken leave of their senses, and they're not fit to govern anymore. And why are they doing this? Why do they want total control of the population? What is that all about? Because this is what this is. This is total control. But money from who? I mean, I know you're talking about 1984, Alan brought that up, but this is 2026. I mean, what the hell are they playing at? And why are the people not actually revolting about this? I mean, why has the revolution not happened yet? it's beyond belief that what they want to do. And if anybody's paying attention, they should be really there in the streets with the pitchforks saying, I don't bloody think so.
But it's the way of it, Lloyd, isn't it? I mean, they want absolute control. I mean, they tell us how wonderful the British Union is, how wonderful living in the United Kingdom is, how wonderful our democracy is, but we want to put in a pantococtin on you so you don't say anything out of line. It's that good. It's quite scary.
Yeah, it is, but it's the nature of all authoritarian regimes. As they get driven further and further into the corner, they become more and more interested in absolute control over what they think they can control. But I think, you know, in real terms here, the connection between the big surveillance companies and the politicians, you know, it's no coincidence that Tony Blair hangs about with Peter Thiel, that Starmer and Mandelson and Streeting and various others, Rachel Reeves as well, hang about with Peter Thiel or that lunatic from Palantir. These organizations who are running the surveillance for the Israeli government in the West Bank and in Gaza. Now, these are the dinner guests of our political class. These are the people that the political class hang about with. And when the political class get told by the people that they believe to be incredibly successful because they've got loads of money, like they all love Palantir, they all love Peter Thiel, they all love Elon Musk because they've got loads of money and therefore they believe they've got power. What they want to do is they want to apply those ideas, the ideas that they chit-chat while they're at Davos or around the dinner table on a Wednesday night in the West End of London. These are the issues that come up. The issues of, you know, it's absolutely essential for the benefit of the country and for the society that we have absolute control over people. And these, you know, Peter Thiel particularly, and the lunatic that runs Palantir, will regularly say these things publicly. But we get what they say secondhand from our politicians, like this lunatic Home Secretary. The whole idea is about, you know, that if there's a need for control, if you want people who want to be in control of things, then go to the political class first. The political class are more interested in control than they are anything else at all. Now, the really worrying thing about this is you get the impression that there's a desire on behalf of not just the current political class, but the one that went before it, the Tony Blairs of this world, who believe that there is a threat to them from the ordinary citizen, the ordinary member of Joe Public, having any rights whatsoever, that those rights must be confined by their elders and betters. And it's a typical British bourgeois attitude to believe that you know better. It's what happens in British political circles, because it is a rarefied, elitist kind of genre, for want of a better description, where people believe themselves to be better than the people who elected them. And that's very much the nature of British society and British politics. Another good reason why we need to get out of it, because we can see from the behaviour of the politicians in our parliament that they are beginning to ape exactly those same ideas that they have in Westminster. You know, how much more of a control can you think of than lifelong anonymity for people who were accusers in a court case? Is that not about absolute control? Wasn't that delightful for John Swinney to be able to say that, no, I am upholding the law. I cannot allow these truths to come into the public domain because the law tells us not to. It's all about self-protection. And ultimately, the citizens, we that will be looked upon by the panopticon, we are the threat. And that's effectively what government is telling us when they want to introduce surveillance. They're telling us that they perceive the majority of the people of the country to be a threat. Maybe, again, as I said earlier, this has a lot to do with the fact that who our politicians hang about with, who they have dinner with, who they go on holiday with. But maybe it's also those that they admire. because some of the ideas that have come into British politics in the past 2-3 years have come straight out of Tel Aviv. A lot of these ideas are exactly the ideas that have been put in place by the Israeli government in their control of the Palestinian people in their occupied country.
Yeah.
And all of this they want to bring here. And that's why it's really important that people start recognizing that we have a political class, particularly in Stammer's Labour Party, but also in the Scottish National Party. We have a political class who genuinely believes themselves to be above and beyond, smarter, brighter, and more important than the people that elected them. And if you're in a polity that has that thoughts about itself, then you are on the brink of disaster. And the fact of the matter is, we have the ability to change and prevent that disaster in May of next year by just being a little smarter about how we vote. And the first part of being smart about how you vote is not to vote for the Scottish National Party.
Actually, on my closing remarks here, I was going to put all roads lead to Tel Aviv. So we agreed again, Mr. Quinnan. And the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, it's who you're not allowed to criticise. Always remember that's the ones you've got to watch out for, the people you're not allowed to criticise. We've run out of time, as I said. I'd hoped to cover Mark Carney, who's now become the darling of the Western world, and who has been held up as a shining light because he stood up to Mr. Trump and said, oh, it's terrible, you can't invade Denmark's land and Greenland, that would be wrong. And I was, oh, yes, it's terrible. And it's terrible to invade Ukraine. Oh, yes, that's terrible. And what about Israel invading Palestine? Next question. Oh, you're allowed, that's okay. The hypocrisy of them, as soon as it got to their doorstep, suddenly it became a problem. But it isn't a problem when the poor people of Palestine are being invaded, killed, murdered, raped, and pillaged every day. It's who you can't criticise, folk, that you should worry about. Until we see you and yours, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.